sacrifices, play this game. I done prayed that my life would never be the same. I done prayed that I will make it bring glory to my name.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Uncle Strib. So my favorite time of the year is upon us, and that is the NBA playoffs. And so with the new system that they implemented last year during the whole pandemic, the play-in tournament. So I'm gonna pretty much do episode after each day or round, or pretty much each day or round of the NBA playoffs or play-in. So today we're gonna recap the first set of games for the play-in tournament. And so yesterday, the Clippers played the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Cleveland Cavaliers played the Brooklyn Nets. So going over the Clippers game first, it was a pretty impressive game. Thought that the Clippers were going to win, even though so Minnesota had the 3.5-point favorite from Vegas betting odds. And they obviously closed that. But I thought Clippers had a good chance of winning. They had Paul George back. Reggie Jackson's been playing really well the past pretty much the whole season since Kawhi and Paul George were out for a long time. And they're a pretty well-established defensive team. So I thought that they had the ability to hold Timberwolves. And so thought the Clippers were going to win. Now, Timberwolves won 109-104. And just recapping for anybody that missed it, Paul George, pretty much in terms of individual players, standout players for each team, Paul George had 34 points, 10 of 24, 8-11 from free throw, 3 for 5 from three. And he had 7 rebounds as well as 5 assists. Reggie Jackson, he played decent. He had 7 of 18, 3 for 6 from the three. And he had 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Reggie Jackson, I believe he's averaging over 20 something points for the season. So in terms of performance and how he's been playing, he kind of underperformed. He's at for the season, he's averaging 16.8. But since Paul George and Kawhi are out, he's been averaging over 20 since he had to carry the majority of the load. And then Norman Powell, who they got from Trailblazers, he put up 16, 3, and 1. So as a team overall, they didn't play bad. And then obviously close game. Looking at the Timberwolves, we have Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't know what happened with Karl-Anthony Towns. He only played 24 minutes. He had 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, which he's been playing incredible this year, averaging 24.6 points per game, 9.8 rebounds. He's been playing extremely well this season, but kind of just didn't really show up during the playoffs. But Anthony Edwards had a 30-point game, 35 rebounds, 2 assists, 10 of 21, 5 for 11 from three, played fantastic, as well as one of my favorites, D'Angelo Russell, had 29, 5, and 6. And so looking at their overall matchup, game was pretty good game. They both were shooting very close, 44% for Clippers, 43% for Timberwolves. Three-pointers is pretty close. Free throws are about the same. The big difference that gave the Timberwolves an edge was offensive rebounds. They had 12 to the Clippers 7, and steals they had 10 to the Clippers 5. So they had double the amount of steals. And with all the people that know basketball know that steals turn into fast break points and points off of turnovers. So they had 12 fast break points, 12 points off of turnovers, where the Clippers only had 8 fast break points. And also with the rebounding, the Timberwolves had 49 rebounds to the Clippers 39. And what's even more impressive is the offensive rebounds, because offensive rebounds lead to second chance points. Well, the Timberwolves had 12 offensive rebounds to the Clippers 7, and those 12 offensive rebounds led to 14 second chance points to the Clippers 8. So in breaking down the game, Minnesota just took advantage off of playing good defense, getting steals, and crashing the offensive boards and getting second chance points. So now that puts the Timberwolves in the playoffs because they won the play-in. I'm going to go over the setup of the first round of the playoffs after I go over this second game. And I'll go in more detail after today's games where we officially know who is what in terms of the Pelicans, Spurs, and the Hawks and Hornets. So now Cleveland Nets. Not going to lie, pretty much knew that the Nets were going to win this one. Nets were a 9.5-point favorite. It's a pretty good spread. And we all know that now that Kyrie's able to play because they lifted the mandates for Brooklyn, that ever since Kyrie's been playing, Nets have been playing a lot better. They've gone on a little run. So Nets won 115-108. Now Darius Garland played fantastic at 31 points, 1 rebound, 5 assists, 2 steals. Kevin Durant had 25 points, 5 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. And also for the Cavaliers, Evan Mobley had 19 points, 7 and 2. Carlos Levert, sorry if I'm slurring these names. He had 12, 7 and 7. Kevin Love at 14, 13, 1. So it was a pretty good distribution of contribution from Cleveland. Even Lauri Markkanen had he's their power forward, had the 13-4, no assists. So it was by committee, which Cleveland has been known for the season for being a pretty good team effort or team ball. They distribute the ball pretty well in terms of people scoring. Even Rondo had 7 points, 3 rebounds, 9 assists coming off the bench. And then Brooklyn, on top of Kevin Durant's 25, 5 and 11, Kyrie had 34 points, 3 rebounds, 12 assists. Andre Drummond put up 16 points and 8 rebounds off of 18 minutes. So, I mean, Andre Drummond's been playing so much better since they started to throw him in the rotation at the Nets. And I'm an Andre Drummond fan. So I'm glad to see him kind of getting back to that dominant force in the paint offensively and defensively. And then as Bruce Brown also had 18 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. And Nick Claxton had 13 points, 9 rebounds, and an assist. Patty Mills threw in 6 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist. So again, even though Kyrie and Durant were your huge standouts, you still had some other guys like Drummond and Brown and Claxton also contribute to the win. Now, breaking down the matchups and where we really see the game take off, the biggest one off to me is points off of turnovers. So the Nets had 24 points off turnovers, and the Cavaliers only had 10. That's a huge win for the Nets, as well as blocks. Nets had 9 blocks, Cavs had 2 blocks. Everything else, though, is pretty much the same, except another big point. Just Nets are obviously, because of Kyrie and KD, you're talking about 2 of the most skilled scorers in the game. Also, the other biggest difference is that the Nets just shot more efficient. Nets shot pretty much 10% better than the Cavs from the field. Cavs shot 45%, and the Nets shot 54%. Cavs were 41 for 92. Nets were 45 for 84. So not only did they make more shots, but they make more shots off of less attempts, made them more efficient. 3-point range was about the same. They both scored 9 or both made 9 3-pointers. But the Cavs were a little bit more efficient at 35% to the Nets 32. Cavs shot better free throws. But again, it really just came down to getting those blocks, those defensive stops, and getting the points off of turnovers. And so getting into what the playoffs are going to look like so far, now we have the Nets playing the Celtics in the first round, right? And then because Timberwolves won, we have Timberwolves and Memphis playing in the first round for there. Now, today we have not the last 2, but we have 2 games today with the Spurs, Pelicans, and Hornets and Hawks. Now, Spurs, Pelicans are a 5.5-point favorite. Now, this is one of those games I'm not sure which way it can go. Because to me, they're pretty 2 evenly well-matched teams. I could see either winning. I'm kind of leaning more towards the Spurs because they've gone They've won 6 of their last 4, but at the same time, Pelicans have also won 6. So again, it's tough. DeJounte Murray's averaging 21.1. CJ McCollum's averaging 24.3. So breaking down the matchup, Spurs are tied for 5th in pace in terms of points per game. They're scoring 100 points per game versus the Pelicans. They're tied. They're 21st. So in terms of pace, Spurs play at a faster pace. And then field goal percentage, Spurs shoot a little bit better from a field goal percentage. They're tied at 13th. Pelicans are tied for 22nd. Now, where there's a big advantage is the free throw percentage for the Clippers. Free throw percentage for the Pelicans. They shoot 78.9% versus the Spurs shooting 75%, which is going to be a big difference come playoffs. If it comes down to the wire and it's a close game, and you have the Pelicans that shoot free throws more consistently, that's going to give them an edge. The Pelicans, sorry if I keep saying Clippers, the Pelicans are also 3rd in the NBA in offensive rebounds. That's going to be crucial to them winning because they get those second chance opportunities under the basket. Now, the Spurs are 2nd in assists. So they're going to be able, if they distribute the ball and they play by committee and don't just rely on one person getting all the points, that could give them an edge in the game. And then, but the Spurs also are 5th in turnovers. So by 5th in turnovers, they are 5th in causing turnovers, which is going to be very beneficial to them. But everything else in terms of offensive rating, Spurs are 18th, Pelicans are 19th. Defensive rating, Spurs are 16th, Pelicans are 20th. So, I mean, everything else for the most part is pretty close in terms of ratings. Their 3-point field goal percentage, Spurs 26th, and the Pelicans 28th. Rebounding, Spurs are tied for 8th, Pelicans 11th. So it's pretty even. The only big difference is the pace for going towards the Spurs, free throw percentage towards the Pelicans, offensive rebounds towards the Pelicans, and the turnovers for the Spurs. So if I were a betting man, I would actually probably go with the Spurs, just because I think that when it comes playoff time, I feel like they have a little bit more depth. I feel like they play better defense, and they're gonna have more of a committee effort in terms of scoring the basket, and I think they're gonna play better team ball. So I'll give it to the Spurs. Pelicans have the better record, but I think I'm gonna give it to the Spurs on this one. And then we have Charlotte and Atlanta. Again, this one's tough because both teams can go on runs. Both teams have been kind of inconsistent. They're streaky, so they can go on some win streaks and then go on losing streaks. But I'm leaning more towards Atlanta. So the Hornets play at a faster pace, but the Hawks 7th and 7th in the NBA in field goal percentage. They're actually tied 2nd for 3-point percentage. They're 4th in free throw percentage. So offensively, the Hawks are looking pretty dominant in this matchup offensively. These are all based on ratings. Obviously, we know in playoffs when they show up, anything can happen. But just look at what they've been at for the season. Offensively, they're stout. But on the other side of that, defensively, Hornets are looking good. They're better in rebounding. They're better in offensive rebounding. The Hornets are actually top 10 in offensive rebounding. They're 1st in assists. The Hornets are 1st in assists. And then in steals, they're 5th in this. They're 5th in steals, and they're 5th in steals. And their defensive rating is 23rd to the Hawks 26th. So defensively, the Hornets look like a better matchup. But I think I'm going to go with the Hawks just because Trae Young is playing fantastic. He's averaging 28.4 off of 9.7 assists, and he's averaging a steal a game. So I'm going to give this one to the Hawks. I think the Hawks will pull this one off. but I would not be surprised if the Hornets get this one done, just because I think it's going to be. I think both these games are going to be a good one, should be, and then we will figure out in terms of who will play in the tournament. Now, what I will say, because the play-in tournament gets kind of tricky or confusing if you're not familiar with it. So seventh and eighth place, 7th through 10th play in a play-in tournament to play for the eighth and 7th seed. So if the winner of the 7th and 8th place wins, they automatically get the 7th seed. But if you're in 8th place and you lose, then, or if you're 8th or 7th place, but let's just say, for example, the 7th seed wins and get the play-in tournament. That means the 8th seed loses, but they will play the winner of the 9th and 10th seed play-in. And the winner between those two will get the 8th seed. So pretty much if you're 7th or 8th, you just got to win 1 out of 2. But if you're 9th or 10th, you have to win both of them straight. You don't get 2 wins. So for example, the Cleveland Cavaliers lost to the, let me find it. So the Cleveland Cavaliers are the 8th seed. They lost to the 7th seed Brooklyn Nets. So the Brooklyn Nets are officially in, and they are the 7th seed. They will play Celtics first round. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers will play the winner of the Charlotte and Atlanta game that's tonight. And I don't know if it's going to be the next day or if it will be the day after, but Cleveland they have another shot. They're not officially eliminated yet. So they'll play the winner of Atlanta and Charlotte, which I think I will take Cleveland over either of those 2 teams that wins tonight. So for the West, looking at the matchup, the Timberwolves beat the Clippers. So the Timberwolves are officially the 7th seed. And now the Clippers will play the winner of the Spurs and Pelican game. And the Spurs or Pelicans, they need to win tonight. And they also need to beat the Clippers for the next round. Then after all that, the playoffs will be set for seeding. And the playoffs will officially begin, because the play-in tournament does not technically count towards playoff. It's a weird dynamic, because the stats you get in the play-in don't count for playoff, and they don't count for regular season. So I don't know what they're going to end up doing in the future. If you're asking my personal opinion, if you're going to do all this, you might as well just extend the playoffs to the top 10 seed and just have a first week bye for first and second. That would make the most sense to me if you're going to do all this. That way it's just, you just add an extra week or an extra series or whatever to the playoffs. That's what they should just make it 1 through 10 instead of having this plan. It makes no sense. But anyway, that's the recap for day 1 of the play-in. After tonight's game, I will do the recap for the play-in that happened today. And then once we get to the point where the seeding is officially set, I will go over the first round of the playoffs in detail, breaking down the data, breaking down the stats, the ratings, and I'll give my take on who I think is going to take the W. I'll go over who I think is going to win it all, who are my dark horses, yada, yada, yada. But appreciate you guys for listening. This has been Uncle Strib. Stay tuned for more on the NBA recaps, and we'll catch you guys next time.
I'm gonna chase my dreams.